Welcome to my kitchen. This is a sweet potato, and I'm going to put it into this and make sweet potato biscuits. Let's get started. First things first, you're going to need your ingredients, and I'll put that in a list in the description. But you're also going to need some pieces of equipment, and depending on how fancy your situation is, it's going to be kind of different results. And so first up, when putting the flour in, this is a sifter. Lets you get the lumps out and kind of combine a bunch of your dry ingredients. And so the first thing we're going to do is get the dry ingredients into the mixing bowl over here and make sure that they're sufficiently well put together before we start incorporating the fat. Now, if you don't have a sifter, you can use any kind of wire mesh strainer, and I'll show you how that works. Once we've got all the dry ingredients sifted together and we add in the fat, we can set aside the dry phase and start working on the liquid phase. And that's the part where it gets a little bit more entertaining. So up first, I like to use multiple measures to get my 1 cup of flour. So instead of going straight to 1 big cup, I'm going to take 3 1/3. And it's okay if it's not perfectly level, because some steps that I do towards the end will actually accommodate that. So that's 1. Two-thirds. And you know, if you got kids, this is a great way to help teach them fractions or something. Alright, and 3/3 makes 1 whole cup. Hooray. So I'm going to close this off and put it to the side for a bit, because the next thing I have to do is add in the baking powder. So baking powder is important because it's a leavening agent. And the challenge that we have when making sweet potato biscuits, as opposed to just plain old buttermilk biscuits, is that your leavening has to do a little more work than usual. So I'm not going to use a fully level tablespoon, which I could do by just kind of raking that off. So I'm going to make it rounded or so, a little bit. So that goes in as well. So now this one's all done. So I'm going to put that off to the side back here. Next thing I want to do, for science reasons, is add a little bit of salt. And so most people might be thinking, oh, is this where the seasoning in the sweet potato goes in? You could do that, but then you'd be wrong. So since I didn't use a sifter, I'm using this. I can just shake and tap, and it all goes in. Very easy. So now I'm going to set this to the side, because up next comes the part where we have to incorporate the fat. So I've got a stick of butter. It's reasonably cold, but I need to blend it in. Now, there are a bunch of different ways you can do this. You can cut it into individual small pieces and then use a fork or your fingers to work it into the batter. If it's really cold and you're trying to get it done quickly, then you can take a box grater and just shred it in. Be careful of your fingers towards the end there. But I like using this. It's a pastry blender, hand blender, whatever they call it. You'll know it when you see it in the store. Relatively cheap, but I find that it gives me the perfect ability to really get in there and mush the butter down and make sure that it's incorporated with all the dry ingredients. And so I think old school, back in the olden days, they used lard, but you want some kind of, or shortening, but you want some kind of fat that's going to be reasonably soft and will get it done in the oven. Interestingly, there is this idea that you could probably use food processor with a few quick pulses to incorporate all of this, but I'm just gonna cut my pieces of butter and drop those guys in. So, one of the things I like about this particular recipe is that it's straightforward and you don't have to do a whole bunch of memory work. One cup, one stick, at least for the dry ingredients. Get you. And now I've got this greasy paper, and I'm going to put it away for a second because I'm going to come back and use it later. Alright, so the knife will sit here, the whole stick is in. Now I get to blend in. So you'll see it on the overhead shot. So I'm going to take this dry part and set it aside because now I've got to do my liquid phase. So let's set this down back here. And I've got a separate bowl to do my liquid phase work. And the trick with the liquid phase is you're going to have buttermilk, which aside from the flavor has slightly higher acidity than your regular 1%, and as a result will help the leavening agent do a better job of rising. And the reason we worry about the rise is because sweet potato is denser and heavier than your regular buttermilk or whatever dairy you're going to use. So your chemistry is going to need a little extra help in getting that oomph to get everything to rise. So step one, I've got sweet potatoes that I've already baked. If you aren't planning it out days in advance and you don't bake everything the day before, you can pop it in the microwave, nuke it for as long as you need to. But what you want is for the skin to be kind of off of it and saggy. So I'm going to take my knife so there's our buttermilk, and I'm going to go over here and throw in some seasonings. We'll say I'm going to use a little bit of vanilla extract just because we are baking. This opens up the flavor a bit. So you season things consistent with what you're used to. So if you have mashed sweet potato laying around, it probably has some cinnamon and some ginger. Of course, if you have mashed sweet potato laying around, it may also have some sugar in it, so that becomes something that you want to worry about. I don't add the sugar here because, well, sweet potato biscuits are delicious enough by themselves. You've got some sweetness from the sweet potato, and odds are you're going to be eating this with hopefully some kind of sweet cream butter or some syrup or something that'll add in some nice sweetness to it anyway. If and when that happens, where the mash isn't exactly where you like it, I just use a spatula and I can mush it. I guarantee that I'm getting as many large pieces out of the way as possible. Plus, I'm going to need the spatula later on when I got to scoop this into the wet ingredients. So let's get that going. Put the fork off to the side. I may need you later. So, as you can see, this is pretty well good and mashed, and got the whole thing going. So, next step is going to be, I've got my dry sitting back here with the butter all mashed in and incorporated together. I've got the wet with the buttermilk and sweet potato appropriately seasoned. And now I just need to bring them together to make the actual biscuit dough. So I can set aside the hand blender, and I can start mixing these things together. Now what I'm going to do next is go ahead and turn on the oven, get that preheating, 375. You can do 375 to 400. You want a good high heat. That's going to cause the chemistry to happen, so that as the bread is baking, leavening makes it rise, and you'll get, taller, fluffier biscuits. Gonna come together nicely, and you'll get a ball of dough. You want it to look a little bit wet, because the final thing we have to do is actually roll this out. And so this was one of the things that I had to learn in perfecting this recipe, was the difference between drop biscuits and roll biscuits. When I wasn't adding sweet potato, it kind of didn't matter. If it was dropped, you made your biscuit dough, and you would just get a scoop and drop the biscuits directly onto the surface, pop them in and bake them, and they kept their size and shape. It's kind of a wet, sticky dough, which is good. So I turn this out onto the floured surface, and in the act of rolling it around, we'll actually basically kind of coat and seal the surface enough with the flour that when it goes in and bakes, none of the air can come out once you take it off of heat, and they'll rise and stay risen. It took a lot of effort to get to that point. So I'm going to put the buttermilk away, and now comes the fun part. So everything's floured, and now comes the fun part. Now this is advertised as a bunch of different things. Maybe it's a bash and chop. If you use it for garlic, put garlic down, bash it, and then you just kind of give it a rough chop. People also call it a bench scraper. The idea being that that workspace is your bench, and you use this to scrape things. You're going to take a cast iron skillet as the place that you're going to put the biscuits in. So that's why I needed this guy. So I can take it and grease it up a bit. Now if you like, you can also take a really very neutral oil, or preferably butter, and just wipe down that entire inside surface of the skillet, right? And so by doing this, you'll be able to guarantee that you get good coverage of all your biscuits and a respectable release. Of course, it should be well seasoned to begin with. If not, find yourself a old Southern grandmama and see if you can convince her to give you one of hers. Probably gonna cost you a lot, like your children or your life or something. We don't like to part with those things. I can scrape it fairly clear of all of this flour, and I'm just gonna go in and toss that. So there's the preheating all done. So I've got my biscuits sitting here, and in you go. I'm gonna give it 15 to 17 minutes. So let's cook time. Split the difference, 16 minutes. So that's gonna get it 16 minutes. I'm going to do cleanup because got flour all over my hands, and I did dirty up some things. But when we come back, I can take them out. You can see, boom, sweet potato buttermilk biscuits. Alright, it's been about 17 minutes later. This thing is beeping because everything's done. So let's take the biscuits out. So these guys spread an awful lot. And you can also see that they've gotten taller. And so the biscuits are done. I'm gonna let these sit out for a bit. I'll let them hang out just to retain a bit more of the heat and basically close everything out. But effectively, there you have it. Sweet potato buttermilk biscuits in your cast iron skillet. So I'm gonna let these guys just soak up a little more heat with the door open, and we're good to go.